to 7, so 1792. Of course, most of us know what happened to herself, but this one is called Marie Antoinette with a Rose. And the reason why it's here is because of the painter. Marie Antoinette actually hired a woman as a court painter, Elizabeth Louise Vigée Lebrun. And she was very young at that time, and which was unheard of, mainly because women couldn't join the artist guilds, the painting guilds that were in England. And so hired her kind of offsite, and people were very shocked that she would do that. But in the end, she was taught by her father, and she ended up doing over 600 portraits of royals and aristocrats. And so her work is quite amazing. And this one is located in the Palace of Versailles in France. And so this first little part is about famous people and their jewelry. So next, this is a KPM porcelain painting. KPM is a German company that was really popular around the turn of the century, 21st century. And they would hire artists from all over the world that were professional that could paint on porcelain. This one is about the size of my hand. So it's about 6 inches. The porcelain part is about 6 inches. And when I found it, I've said, okay, gotta have it, gotta do something. So this is actually a wall piece. There were lots of hand painted small like lockets and wall pieces that were used for gift giving in most cases. And so I decided that this would be a great thing. So this one is mostly in peyote stitch, and um, and then it has the CZs on 3 corners, and then a lacy stitch at the top for hanging it on the wall, which is where it hangs at the moment. Right. A wedding gift from a beloved, the sapphire brooch, very, very famous brooch. It is, we know it more from Queen Elizabeth II wearing it, but it actually was a gift from Prince Albert to Queen Victoria on their wedding day. And so this one is circa 1840. It was the Gerard, which is the court jeweler for the monarchy. She wore it as her something blue, and she actually started something new where she said that certain pieces of jewelry were to be left to the crown, meaning they couldn't be personally owned. They're owned by the crown, and so they would actually go down in succession with the monarchy. And so now it is in the possession of King Charles and Queen Camilla, and will eventually go to William when the time comes. But the brooch is absolutely stunning, and Elizabeth II loved it and wore it a lot. And so, and there it is again. And so there's Queen Victoria before the loss of her husband. So you could tell that she's wearing light colors. As soon as her husband passed away, she never wore a light color again. She always wore black. And there's the brooch again. And then Queen Elizabeth II wearing the brooch, which is beautiful, stunning. And so I decided that I needed to do something that would be along that line. So this one's called All You Beat Is Love. And it was originally, I was originally contacted to do a theme project for a retreat. I'm not big on theme projects, but when I heard what the theme was, I figured, okay, I can do that. And it was supposed to pick a song from the Beatles, and that I was supposed to create a piece that would have not the exact name of the song because that's copyright issues. So I went, oh, all you need is love. Okay, I got this. All you beat is love. Okay, that works for me. And so I did a little bit of research, which I really like. I did a little research to find out about Paul McCartney, because Queen Elizabeth II knighted him. He was his Sir Paul McCartney. And there's a little story about the two of them meeting up a couple of times, and he was invited to multiple evening events. She was very much into supporting musicians of all different kinds of musicians. And there was this one cute little story where she's going down the line and he's standing there and he leans over and he says, "We've got to stop meeting like this, ma'am," which I thought was so cute. Can you imagine talking to the queen like that? I don't know if I could. This one is a Tanzanite 20 millimeter CZ. It is built up, it's pretty deep. It's built up with peyote stitch increasing and netting, and it has your setting stones. So these are you're actually physically setting stones in fine metal settings. And then the Swarovski pearl strap, just in basic right angle weave, which looks beautiful in really round beads. It's really gorgeous in pearls. Ends with two button closures so that a left-handed person and a right-handed person can actually remove it and put it on as they like. And so that all you beaders love. This is Empress Josephine de Bonaparte, 1763 to 1814. Her name was actually Rose, but she had a very long name, and I can't repeat it because it's enormous. It's like takes a whole goes all the way across a 8.5 by 11 all the way across, and so this is the artist Henry Francois Reisner, circa 1806. This is located in the Chateau Maison. It's in France. And the reason for this image being here is that this is the famous sapphire parure. A parure basically means a set. And in this case, because she's an empress, the set is enormous and included a necklace. It included, you could see the waist, it's a necklace that's wrapped around her waist, multiple bracelets. There are also earrings, brooches, a stomacher, which the stomacher, you'll see a picture of that in a bit. The stomacher is a piece of jewelry that would be attached to the surface of your stays. So there would be your corset, we'll say corset because a lot of people know that name, in that time period would have been called stays, and that there'd be a cover over that, and that you would pin, it would allow you to pin jewelry or sew jewelry to it. And so this one here, it it's very stunning. She created this style. She loved this the stones being separated by pearls or diamonds, and that would go they would graduate around her neck. Became a very popular design, and even on the coronation of Napoleon, you could see her ladies in waiting all wearing necklaces that were very similar in shape. This
Was that the necklace that was stolen recently?
oh no, no, they still have it. I knew that was going to come up. I was like, no, they're still there, which is a good thing. This one, fast forward a little bit. So this is Queen Maria Amelie, and 1782 to 1866. All the parure went up for sale, and it was sold off in kind of in parts. This Queen Marie, she actually acquired most of it. So you can see all the brooches that are attached to her garment. The stomacher is right here, got to attach to her gown. She's not wearing the crown. There is a crown, and the necklace has been redone, and so which is really interesting. So she was married to Louis Philippe I, King of France, and she was the last queen of France. And but she's quite delicious in all of her bedecked. Look at her hat and her crown and everything amazing. And yes, so at the Louvre, these jewels are there. So here is the small crown, a pair of earrings, two brooches. Not sure what happened to the rest. They could be behind the scenes. There's the stomacher. So it's a gigantic pen. And a lot of these jewels that were attached to garments, a lot of them were sewn on, and they'd be sewn on for the evening, and then they would be cut off at the end of the evening because the gowns were shaped so that they could hold up the weight of the jewelry. And then you could see that the necklace here had been redone. So instead of having the swag, which Josephine really liked, she's changed it over to diamonds and these drops. And you can see her wearing it right there, which is amazing. And so going by Josephine's real name, I created a rose by any other name. And so this one is a combination of a variation of cubic right angle weave, peyote stitch, setting stones. All the stones are CZs, Swarovski pearls, and this one's more like a collar. So again, sort of like what the two the Empress and the Queen are wearing. It's more of a collar and sits really nice on the neck. This one is from 2024. So most of us that have enjoyed Downton Abbey, not only for their clothing, their costuming was amazing, but the jewelry was also amazing. In the first episodes, Cartier, a lot of jewelry was borrowed from Cartier and vintage jewelry, but insurance was so high to protect these pieces, they ended up hiring a gentleman by the name of Andrew Prince. That has nothing to do with the monarchy. So if you're looking up his name to see his jewelry, do Andrew Prince Downton Abbey, and you can see there's some great YouTube videos of him actually working at his workstation. So what he did, as a young man, he was very, very interested in Louis, the early Cartiers, Louis Cartier, Louis, and so he taught himself a lot of jewelry making skills. Plus, he got schooled in it, and then he decided that his style was going to be like the early Cartier. So in this case, I'm more interested in the sautoir. Sautoir means to chain, old French word. And Mary Crawley is wearing it here with a gown. In a later episode, and I can't remember if it was in the movie or in the last episode, she's actually wearing it backwards, so the tassel's hanging down the back. Very common for a sautoir to be some kind of linking chain, a central component that pulls it all together, and a tassel. That's usually the style, and they're very long, so there's usually no clasp involved. And so this one, here it is right here. This one's done by Andrew Prince. So he used platinum, he used gold, he did use sterling, but he used CZs. So instead of having the diamonds racking up the tremendous cost, he would actually make the replicas, but using CZs. But they're all very fine. They're all very fine. And then natural pearls down here. So I decided, since I love Downton Abbey, so I would do my version. And again, following the style of the sautoir. This one's called the Downton tassel. So this one has a center component of an 18mm cushion cut CZ. The chain is done with Swarovski pearls and a very soft, fluid chain, and then ends in the dramatic tassel, which really, that's part of that sautoir. It's got to have that big honking tassel at the end. And so this one is a really fun piece to do. It's really fast to do, which is unusual for a Cynthia Rutledge project. This one moves out really fast. So, which everybody said, well, this one's really easy. I know, I can do easy. It just doesn't happen very often for some reason. This one's 2024. This one's about famous paintings, myths, statues, and that kind of thing. This one has a pretty good story, and this is Princess Elizabeth of Saxe-Altenburg. Altenburg was a province where Germany is today, and this is her family. Her family, Joseph, the Duke of Saxe-Altenburg, and their daughters, Amalie and Alexandra. This is circa 1848. Amalie, which is she's right here. She was actually painted by Carl Steeler. He actually is very famous for doing the Gallery of Beauties. If you don't know what that is, the Gallery of Beauties is a small portraits of what was considered the most beautiful women in Europe, and it's at the Nymphenburg Palace in Germany, and she is in the gallery. And so when I found this image, I thought, look at her necklace. I love finding paintings that have jewelry in them because it makes you feel like they probably it was their jewelry. In this case, for the style of the time, which would be um, 1848, going by their gowns and everything. The necklace part would have been more on like a velvet ribbon. It would had a sliding component, and it ended in these little bullet shaped, not a tassel, but little bullet shapes. And so I said, okay, this is a great thing to see, that where you're seeing actual jewelry, which is really interesting. And I think the composition is really good. The princess is looking at paintings of herself when she was younger. So I think that's really interesting as well. Composition is really beautiful. This is actually located at the Hermitage Museum in Germany. And so with that in my mind, I'm going. So this is actually called Estelle Satois. I didn't want to use ribbon, so I did cubic writing a weave with 3mm fire polish. Talk about moving fast. And it does have a sliding component, and it does end with two tassels opposed to the bullets. I named it Estelle's mainly because at the same time I was researching, I came across the love story of Estelle Arpel, and she was the wife of Alfred Van Cleef. Put those two names together. Van Cleef and Arpel. There we go. And so she was the daughter of a gem dealer, and was a son of a stonecutter. And they fell madly in love, and they were trying to figure out how they were going to run their business because their family was already in business and they didn't want to compete with them. So they decided that they would work on jewelry designs that were much more contemporary. So not they love the Satois look, the long diamond chains and things like that. Very delicate, wearable every day. A lot of pieces that could be disconnected. So necklaces and bracelets that could be disconnected or connected to each other so that they could change the way the jewelry looked, which was very attractive and not necessarily what was done at the time. They opened up on the Place Vendôme in Paris, where they are still today. And so they had a very, very interesting model for their jewelry design. And so it's a really cool story, and it's really neat to be standing in the Place Vendôme and look over and see that their business is still there. You just can't walk in the door. You have to be invited. So, but it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. Okay. Circa 1870, this one's called Fortuna, and Fortuna was a Roman goddess who it was said, she was very beautiful. It was said that she could tell someone's fate and that she could make or break someone by their fortune. And it didn't matter if they were a king or a commoner. It made absolutely no difference. She would have them get on a wheel, and the wheel would turn, and she would make a decision as to what their fortune would be. And so she's portrayed here. This piece is at the Vatican. Um, she's portrayed here with the cornucopia, and she also has the rudder, which the rudder is to steer man to whatever she feels like she needs to do. And it was for good or for bad. So this was done by James Anderson, 1870, at the Vatican. And so again, I love to research. So I find this, which is from 1348 to 1353 approximately. It's done on vellum and it's hand painted, and you can see Fortuna. She is here with her wheel, and you could see all the people in line wanting their fortunes told. And you see there are some with crowns, there are some just a laborer. You could see just all kinds of different people. They were wanting her to tell them what their fortune was going to be, fortune or not so much. And she was not, she always just treated each person individually. And so this is from a manuscript by Giovanni Boccaccio, 1313 to 1375. He was a writer and a poet. And so I thought this was it's really interesting. It's very beautiful. And so I thought, I got to design something with a wheel in mind. And so I researched the history of a wheel. This is called Fortuna's Wheel of Fortune. And early wheels were not exactly round, which is hard to believe, but it's true. And so I made a shape, a three-dimensional shape that is not round. It has curves, and originally wheels, the oldest wheel is from about 3500 BC from Mesopotamia. It was a potter's wheel, but it is round. But actual wheels to move like a cart or something like that, they didn't start off with an axe. There was no axle. So wheels were really difficult to work with until they realized that they could actually create an axle and therefore the wheel could turn freely. And that's what these are. These wheels actually revolve on the stem with the CZ. So in this case, I've got 14 millimeter CZs and 10 millimeter CZs. This is all peyote stitch with a craw variation double bracelet band, following my wheels, going with wheels. Okay, good. Okay. One of my most favorite paintings. It is life size. It is at the Uffizi Museum. It's called Primavera. This is by Sandro Botticelli. It actually was a wedding commission by Lorenzo de' Medici, actually commissioned. And once it was commissioned, he didn't really have, Lorenzo didn't really have anything that said, oh, I want this or I want that. But he hired Sandro Botticelli to create it. And what he created is a masterpiece. First off, it's enormous. And second off, its composition is really different. And you say, well, what would make me think of what I would want to bead with that in mind? What is different about the painting is that most of the figures, with the exception of the putti, which is the Italian version of a cupid, are all almost the same height, which is unique. And then we have, I'll tell you who they are. So this is Zephyr. He is the March wind. He is the wind that's coming in for spring. He falls in love with Chloris, who's right here, who is the breath of spring. So every time she opened her mouth to speak, she would have these beautiful flowers coming out of her mouth. He fell in love with her, so he turned her into Flora. Flora is right here. And Flora is the breath of spring. She is spring. She's the goddess of spring. And then next to her is Venus, right here. And above her is the putti with his arrow pointing to the left. So we've got Zephyr pointing to the left. Flora is ever so slightly pointing to the left. Chloris is leaning to the left. Venus's head is to the left. And then you have the three graces, which are here. They are the daughters of Zeus. So they are charm, beauty, and creativity. And in most cases, they're usually naked. So Sandro Botticelli decided to give them a little bit of an outfit. And then the last one here is Mercury, and he is the messenger to Zeus. And then the emblem that the de' Medici family have, a crest, let's say, is an orange and the leaves of an orange. So you have the orange grove behind. And then the other thing that's really, really unique about this one is that it has over 190 species of plants and flowers that were common to Florence at the time that the painting was created. So they've documented it, which is really, really cool. So why would I bead with this in mind? Because I was beading on this. So I was beading on La Primavera bracelet, and I was thinking, I got all these things lined up. I have faux hinges, and I've got marquee cut CZs, and I'm just thinking this lineup, everything in a line. And I'm thinking, okay, what is making me think of this painting? And it was because of that. It was because that straight line of the imagery going across. I know it's weird. I do a lot of research. So, some people say, well, how did you come up with that? It just was in my head. And when I looked at the painting, I said, oh, there you go. There you go. So this one is La Primavera. Basically, Primavera means spring. And this one is from 2025. And here is it on its own, standing up, like so. Mostly peyote stitch, um, faux hinges, so the piece doesn't actually hinge because it's on a flat strip, but it actually, when it wraps around the wrist, it looks like it's hinged, and which is really cool for that kind of jewelry because it makes it look like you've got a lot more work into it than you actually do. And so that one is using different colors of CZs, so they're not all the same. You can see there are different colors. Okay. Okay. Moving on to a little bit of architecture. This is Tikal in northern Guatemala, and it's a pre-Columbian Mayan civilization. It was 300 BC, 350 BC, I think. And at the time when Tutankhamun's tomb had been discovered, and the carters were bringing out all this amazing gold and amazing things from Egypt, is that the jewelry houses all over the world, Tiffany, Van Cleef& Arpels, Cartier, they all started making jewelry that had something to do with architecture or something to do all from anywhere in the world. And also a lot of Egyptian designs were created because it was all the rage, because it was like this really interesting thing to actually have jewelry designs that were based on a place or a thing. And so in this case, this is Tikal in northern Guatemala. This is the courtyard, which would have been the place for the market. It would have been the place for worship. This is called the Temple of the Jaguar right here, Temple of the Jaguar. And the stelas are all here with different names of different rulers. So it's very much an open place, but the incredible thing about this place is that it's made out of limestone, which is interesting, and that it wasn't found until 1840. So this was hidden in the jungle. And there are multiple palaces, residences, gaming courts, and even a jail. And all of this was tucked underneath the incredible forest in this province, in this area, to be uncovered and to have that what you see today. And so it's really interesting. The stair stepping, this is where the priest would stand at the top and talk to all the people down below. There would be certain rituals. Some people said live sacrifices, not so positive, not really a lot of documentation for that, but a lot of people think that is. And those are like stair steps there. And so I decided, okay, I love the design. What does cubic right angle weave do really, really well? It makes squares and shapes. It does it really, really well. So I'm thinking, okay. So this is in plain sight. This is 2020. And so the Temple of Jaguar it's a 3-layer stack with a CZ at the top. And then the stacks on the sides have 10mm CZs stacked on top of the cubic right angle weave squares, ending in a flat strip and a nice simple closure. And then with the earrings offset from the square I love earrings that have space in them so that you see through them a little bit. So the earrings go along with it. And this is all in 24 karat gold. Was there gold in Tikal? Not that they know of. And so, but I figured I got to do it in gold because it's so beautiful. So this one is in plain sight. If you've ever been to Barcelona, this is a Sagrada Familia, and it is the most striking. And when you see it in a picture like this, you say, okay, over the top, yes. Crazy, yes. Is it finished? No. Will it be finished? Hopefully by 2035 or 34-ish, right in that area is what they're hoping to finish it. But when you go inside, it is breathtaking, breathtaking. And so this one is actually, the architect was Antoni Gaudi, 1852 to 1926. He was very famous all throughout Barcelona for his Art Nouveau forms and shapes. And the first brick was laid in 1882. Obviously, we had a big surge in the past couple of years to get the some of the top. It's going to be the tallest basilica in the world, and which is amazing. And so this is it's incredible. If you've been there, if you plan to go to Barcelona, you got to go there. It's just amazing. So when you are on the inside, this is looking up to the ceiling. Gaudi was really good with color and his use of color and how he handled the shapes. So when you're close to when you're standing at the bottom and you're looking up, the colors of the stained glass are more intense, like 2/3 of the way down. And then as you look up, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. This is looking east. So the sun would come up on the eastern side. So all the colors are very cool. They're all, the greens and the blues and everything very soft. And if you turn around and look the other direction, it's all the colors of sunset. So it's reds and purples and really intense colors looking the opposite direction. So I did two pieces. I'm only showing one here, but I did two pieces, one looking east and one looking west, to use that kind of shaping and the colors. So this is called a cut above. And this is doing color work using color wheel. You got to blend, I think it's nine colors within a couple of inches. So you got to be really, really good with the colors. So I used a color wheel for this. And so this one is using what Gene would call a Gene Power would call a warp square. And so they're very stiff. And so you get to see down inside the shape, which Gaudi would be all over that. And then they have a color block of CZs and a filled netting, which I really, really like because it can't collapse. And so this is using a whole factory pack of 3mm Swarovski pearls. That's 1,000 pieces in order to make it. And so this one is called a cut above. This is 2019. Okay. How am I doing? I'm doing pretty good. Okay. Okay. This one, there was around the time of Elizabeth I, there was a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Hilliard, and 1547 to 1619. And he was a goldsmith and a limnerist. And that word is not something that we would normally, doesn't roll off the tongue. Basically, it means a miniaturist, someone who could paint in a miniature way. So most of the paintings that Elizabeth I hired him for are very tiny. I mean, the Metropolitan Museum in New York has a lovely collection, and they're all, about the size of a $50, maybe a little bit bigger. Some of them are in pendants. Some of them were put to be hung on the wall. Some of them that were to stand up on a little toilet table or something like that. But they were very popular. Elizabeth I actually moved him and his workshop to court. So he would travel with court so that she could commission him. I don't know how many images he did of her, but she would give them as gifts. So he was a goldsmith as well. So he would do miniature on porcelain a lot of times. Sometimes it was on copper. Sometimes it was enamel. It just depended on what the needs were of the time. And then she would present them as a gift, as a thank you for doing something really good for the crown. This one here, this is much later. This one is an enamel miniature of Georgiana Cavendish, future Duchess of Devonshire. She was 1757 to 1806. This one is by Jean Henrik Huthner, circa 1779. It's located at the V&A. It's about 2 inches high. So if you think about painting something on porcelain that's 2 inches high and have it look like that, it's pretty impressive. And so I love the looks of them. They're just really, really beautiful. Here are a couple other ones. So the next ones, these are, the top ones are enamel miniatures. They're done on copper. And this is William VII, Baron Brooke, and his wife, Lady Mary Brooke. And these were done by Christian Frederick Zensky, circa 1716, located at the V&A. And these are also little tiny wall ornaments, very small. And that I think they're beautiful. This one down here is a locket. It's a memorial locket. This one is also on copper of Captain John Whitby by Henry Piercepone. And this is circa 1806. Inside the locket has a poem and a letter, which is it's very, very sweet, a letter on the inside and a lock of his hair. And it was very popular at the time to create imagery that a beloved could have after the person had passed away. So lock of hair is very common. Do you find them with a lock of hair still in them? Not very often. There's a really cool book called A Token of Love and Affection, and that she has documented some of the ones that do have locks of hair on the inside or little tiny braids of hair on the inside, and love notes and things like that, which was very popular at the time. And this one's also, all three of these are on loan. So the V&A does not own them. They were a personal loan to the V&A. So this is called Picture This. This was for Bead and Button, actually not at the show. They actually, in 2018, they hired a group of teachers to work just outside the Biltmore in Asheville. And so we were at a beautiful resort and they wanted us to work on 3 to 4 day project that we would teach, and people, when they signed up, they'd pick the teacher and they would pick that way they'd pick the class. So I decided that they really wanted me to work with metal because I had done the master's class with them. And so they really wanted metal. So I'm like, okay. So we did resin work. So this is epoxy work. So an image was captured. This one is Haley had there. Let me get my teeth adjusted. Helene Sedelmeyer, 1813 to 1898. This one she is in the Gallery of Beauties in Nymphenburg Palace. She was actually a shoemaker's daughter. At this point, she was 17. And so I took the image. They had multiple images to choose from. Some people used family members. Some people used stock images that I had printed. And then we cut them down, put them onto silicone pads, and we did a joint kind of mix of an A and B style of epoxy. Little windows was one of them that we used. We also used another, I can't remember what the other one is. And so the epoxy actually was mixed, and then you would pour it on top of the photo image and then let it dry on these silicone pads. And then while we were waiting, we cut out our shape. So in this case, it's about 4 inches high, cut out our metal shape, started our beadwork in here and got everything rolling. And these are tabletops. So you can see it's got a hinge. Some people did them where they could actually hang them. I did mine where they actually are upright on a little table. This is another one. This one is Grace Rose by Frederick Sandy, circa 1866. It was Grace Charlotte Rose, wife of Sir William Anderson Rose, located at Yale University in Connecticut. And so again, you can see that's got the shine of the epoxy, which was very, Gel de Soleil was the other one. Gel de Soleil dried very glass-like. Little windows dried a little bit less so, but it basically took the place of like a glass cabochon. These are 40 by 50, so they're pretty good size. And then you have peyote stitch and pearls and lots of decreasing in the back and shaping over metal. This is a 36 gauge copper patina metal. And we used Renaissance wax to actually shine it up, and it cuts with scissors. So it's really cool to work with. Very, very cool to work with. Okay. So this is Objects d'Art. And right here, this gentleman, get my thing up here, here we go. This is Louis Duval d'Eponier, 1696 to 1778. The painting is by Maurice Quentin de la Tour. The circa of the painting is 1745. And why is he so interesting? He actually is using snuff. So he's got his little box down here, he's dressed beautifully. He's got his little box, snuff box down here, and he's pinching snuff. What is snuff? Snuff is like ground up tobacco, which is it available today? Yes, you can get it. I don't suggest it, but it comes like in more of a like a paste type thing, or it also comes in loose. And in this case, at this point in time, at this time, it would have been loose, and it was a thing to actually pull your snuff box out of your waistcoat pocket. There's his waistcoat pocket, and to be able to show it off to everyone how beautiful it was. So they had diamonds, they had gems, they had solid gold. They were amazing, and it was more of the show of using the product versus actually using the product. Did women use it? Yes, but not in public. But women did use it. In this case, this gentleman was the advisor and secretary to Louis XV. The location of this is in Lisbon, Portugal. I the Calouste Museum, Lisbon, Portugal. And so again, snuff boxes. Marie Antoinette owned quite a few. Did she actually use snuff? Don't really know, but she owned quite a few of the boxes. I think just because they were beautiful. And so like, oh, well, let's go check that out. So here is, there, a lot of them are oval. And in this case, this one is has the image of Marie Antoinette on it. It's watercolor on ivory in a golden enamel box. The artists, a lot of them were French, artist Francois Dumont. And this one is circa 1768. It's at the Cleveland Museum of Art. A lot of them, they have a lot of things in common. They're usually hinged in the back. They have a snap down closure in the front. They're usually separated out by usually 4 different sections. So you would have a front, 2 sides, and a back, and then they're usually separated with something. And so in this case, they're like these laurel leaves of some kind. But again, very highly decorative. And this one is very, I've seen this one in person. This one's very beautiful. Here are a couple other ones. The top one is Louis XV style, gold and enamel, circa 1761 to 1762. The artist Francois Guillaume, location Cleveland Museum of Art. It's a lovely museum if you've ever been. Very beautiful museum. And again, the oval type shape, the separation of the imagery, very attractive, very beautiful. The bottom one is actually 6 scenes of putti, cupids, at play. And this one is 1761 to 62. The artist is Jean Georget. Gold, griselle, enamel, and diamonds. And so this one's really, really beautiful. This was donated by J.P. Morgan to the Metropolitan Museum in New York. I've seen this one in person as well. It's quite spectacular. And again, to think that a man would pull this out of a pocket to show off his wealth and his good taste was very in. It was a very in thing to do. A couple more. The top one is actually considered to be a Swiss copy of a French style, circa 1785. It's at the Metropolitan Museum as well in New York. But again, the likenesses are very similar. You see that center component. You have the uprights on either side. This one is enamel, which is extremely beautiful. Guilloche, which is basically 2 layers of enamel. It has a colored layer underneath that has striation lines in it, and then they put a clear layer over the top. It's extremely gorgeous when they do it. It's very time intensive, so you don't see a lot of that today, but still a beautiful piece. This one is a portrait of Catherine II, Empress of Russia, 1774 to 75. for the box. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Yeah. So the box is 1786, and this one is French. No, Blairze, I think it is his the artist. And this one's gold, enamel, and diamonds. This one's also at the Metropolitan Museum in New York. So when Bean Button contacted me in 2016, I think it was, and said, hey, you were the first master's class teacher for Bead and Button. We want you to do another one. Is there anything that you think that you would want to do? And I said, it's really weird because yes, there is something I want to do. At the time when I was talking to Jane on the phone, I was making a box. And so I said, yes, I would like to do. So she said, well, what would the name be? And I said, oh my gosh, I have no idea. I'm just trying to make this box right now. And she said, okay, so what is it? I sent her a couple of pictures of what I was working on. And she said, oh, beadwork and metal. That's really cool. Beadwork and metal meet in the middle. Done. Okay. So that it got the name. So it's like, all right, so I'm going to teach a box class. I haven't even made the first box. Now I'm teaching a box class. And so I went ahead and proceeded. And I taught it for Bead and Button twice for them. So they had 3 options for boxes. They had 2 styles that were 18th century style, and then they had 1 contemporary style. So they had an oval box that they can work on. The box could have feet. That has a whole nother name. They had a round box that they could work on. And this was a design class. So what the information that they were given, the instructions that they were given were a book, but they could feel free to change their minds and play and do all kinds of fun stuff what they did. The other one was based on in France, there's a tea company, and now I've lost it, that your tea bag comes in this little shaped box. It's really cute, and it has a little leaf that comes off the top. And I thought they were the cutest things ever. And I bought a box of them to bring home to give as gifts. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be cute to make a box that was like that? So contemporary style. So this one definitely has feet. And so it is, these are all peyote stitch, lots of layering. This is 36 gauge metal here and up here, here and on the bottom of this box. And this is also metal on the top and bottom. And so they're all layered up so that they're super clean on the inside. You don't see any of the construction at all on the inside. And this workshop has been taught steadily since Bead and Button, which I am very blessed. It's been a great thing to work on something that's not necessarily jewelry based. And so it's been it's been lovely to see what people have done once they've taken the basic master's class. And I'll mention one name in particular. Nicole Docterman has taken it to a whole nother level. And so if you go on Facebook and check her work out, it's very amazing. Because she took the workshop, and I could see by the look on her face that she just like, this is it. I have found what I want to work on. And she just took it and ran. And so I'm very proud of her. She's done some beautiful work. So this one is beadwork in the metal, meet in the middle. And then that takes us over to a slightly larger scale. This one is, this is a composite photo of the Marquis de Pompadour, 1721 to 64. She was the mistress of Louis XV. The painting of just her was created in 1750. There's a different background because this is a composite. She's sitting at a very, very amazing table. It's called a mechanical dressing table. It was created for her between 1761 and 1763 by Jean-François Orbien. And what's interesting is what's behind her is her toilette items. So there's things called caskets not for funerals, caskets that were like trinket boxes. And she's got her makeup brush, and she has all kinds of little little things that were used at the table. This table would fold, the mirror folded down and pushed in, and the drawers pushed in. It was called a mechanical table. I'm not exactly sure why. I couldn't find any more other than the drawers opened and closed and things like that, and the mirror folded down, that it could be like a writing table. But I never could get the information why they called it a mechanical table. But the table is amazing. So this is at the Metropolitan Museum. It's set up in a room that they designed to show off some of the pieces of that time period. And it's the Vargenville room at the Metropolitan. And so really, really kind of interesting. But I'm interested in what's back here. That's where I'm headed. So here's the table. And also her toilette items. So she would have her caskets, which are here. These are caskets. These guys, other little trinket boxes, a place for her rings, her little makeup brush. And then she had other things that belonged to her, like little brushes and toothpicks and things, all kinds of really interesting things that she would have at the table. And here is the original painting. And so the casket lid is sitting right here. It's right here. And so she's got her little brushes. She's holding on to, was makeup worn? Yes, to a certain extent. The French were much more accommodating when it came to makeup than other areas, other places, because you know, wearing a rouge or something like that was okay. It still was lightly done. Having a little mark, a little mark on there would be fine, but it was pretty simple. Not a lot, you know, not a lot going on. But unfortunately, a lot of the makeup was had arsenic in it, so it wasn't really a great thing to blur anyway. And so this painting is just showing the full one of the one that was before, with her at her table. And these are over the top jewelry caskets. So they're basically little jewelry boxes. So these look huge, but they're not. They're actually quite small. And they would sit on the toilet table. And so that way you would be able to have the person who was dressing you, because she cannot dress herself. Okay. It's not possible. She can't dress herself because most of the lacings on her gown are in the back. And so she has to have someone to dress her. So someone to put, or she can get her undergarment on, which is sort of like a muumuu like thing, a chemise. And then the stays go on top of that. The stays are for her station, would be laced in the back, and that takes somebody doing that for her. She can't, once she gets to the point of stockings and shoes and things like that, there are certain things that she's losing the ability to do. And so it would take someone else to actually finish getting her petticoats on, under petticoats, the top gown, the bodice, you know, all those other layers would have to be put on by somebody else. And so in this case, the jewelry would be sitting at her table, and she would be able to reach over and decide what jewelry was going to be wearing. But to actually put a necklace on with her gown the way it is probably would have to be put on by somebody else, or you would have to put it on prior to getting dressed, because your movement technically is to be able to reach over, grab a teacup, and take a sip. That is your movement. So when you sit down, the stays are making your legs not sit very nicely, but you're covered in gowns. And so you're better off standing in most cases, motor up. So having her jewelry at the table would be the most appropriate thing, because the person that's dressing her would be able to reach over and say, okay, what do you want to wear? And then we could go from there. This one is 19th. These are both 19th century. They're in the Louis XV style, Rococo style. They're both bronze, and they are enamel. And they have key locking, because locking up your jewels was really important, locking up your jewelry. And both of these, These are the top one was sold at auction for 7 million, something like that. This one was sold at auction. This one is up for sale. I think it's somewhere around 5 grand, something like that. And so, but they're more contemporary to what she had, but I couldn't find any of the Sevres ones, which is what she had. And so I was looking for other ones that were similar. So these are not in a museum. This is at a private collection. And this one is up for sale by Rusted Love, which is an antique dealership. Okay. Everybody holding up okay? Okay, good. All right. So I'm almost there. I'm almost done. Okay. So we're coming kind of full circle. This is Elizabeth Vigée Lebrun, 1755 to 1842. She is holding her daughter, Julie. This is a self-portrait. So 1789, she was the court painter for Marie Antoinette. So we're coming full circle. She actually The reason why she survived the revolution was that Marie Antoinette told her to grab her daughter and run, go. Um, and she did. She went to Italy. She didn't come back to France for 20 years, but because she was such a great painter, she did most of her work in Italy and in Greece, and amazing work. And so this one is at the Louvre. And no, they didn't steal it, thank God. And so this one, I really like this one because it's a self-portrait, and she did a couple of those, which I thought was really interesting. And one of them is she's dressed similar to Marie Antoinette, which is kind of interesting, with students standing behind her, which is really cool. And so because of her, and because of my love of art, I designed a jewelry casket. This is for the love of art. And so this one is about 4.5 inches tall, and it has 4 paintings that she did working around the outside, Marie Antoinette here in the front. But these are glass cabbed. So these are clear glass cabbed. This is built, caskets usually had feet. So this one is built up on pearl and CZ feet. And then it has the 4 extensions on the side, which was typical of snuff boxes and other boxes of the time, to have it split, because a lot of these images were done on porcelain or on enamel, and the enamel can't bend around a corner. So they would have other things that came on board to kind of separate out the box. This one has kind of a snap down lid, and the top button has an image of Elizabeth on one of her other self-portraits at the top, and with set stones, bezeled stones, marquee bezeled stones, and then glass cabs that are attached to a really high wall. And this is 99% peyote stitch, pretty much 99%. And this one's called For the Love of Art. And these are totally clean. So they have metal on the bottom. This is actually 24 gauge aluminum because the colors are very beautiful. This one's actually a beautiful lavender. And so, but the boxes are clean. So when you open them up, you can look inside. It's totally clean on the inside and can be used. So what do most people do when they look at a box? They want to open it. And so when you open it, you want to make sure that it looks really great on the inside. 18th century carriage clocks. My husband Mark and I had the great opportunity when we were in Amsterdam. We were heading for the Rijksmuseum, and we had the first time we were on our own. Second time we had a bunch of students with us, and so we found this really cool place. And when we've been to the Rijks a few times before, so we dropped some people off and make sure that they knew where they were going when their meetup spot. And then we turned around and came back to meet up with these antique clock dealers, Gude and Mace. And they are you have to be buzzed in. When we got in, it's amazing to see what they were selling. I mean, it's absolutely incredible to see what they're selling. And you just walk around and you just say, okay. And he asked me, he says, Well, which one, if you could buy any of the ones that were here, which one would you buy? Well, it was a little egg about 2 inches tall. And he said, really? Out of all the ones here? I said, I just think it's amazing that the clock goes around the egg and it had a little barometer and it was absolutely adorable. So carriage clocks, what were they for? They were for wealthy people to bring time with them when they were traveling. They usually came in cases. You can see one down here in a case. In most cases, they are key wound. The makings of the actual movement of the clocks were most of them were using the invention from Da Vinci. That was a pyramidal cycle called a verge-foussée, which helped make the clock stay on time. It wasn't so much the clock was timely, it was that you had it. And even if it wasn't on time, it was okay because it was so cool. So these would actually be carried by either one, a private carriage, where they would have the clock there, or by the guest that was in the carriage that could take it to their hotel or their other home or their other wherever. And then they would be able to put that out and the time would be set and you would move on from there. And so they're all very interesting. And amazingly, carriage clocks are tiny. These are only about 4 to 5 inches tall. So they're very intricate and very tiny. And having one have a case is very unique because a lot of the cases got lost. They were made out of leather. They usually have velvet on the inside, but a lot of the cases just got lost along the way. And even though the antique dealer, he did have a couple of cases, but most of his clocks did not have cases. And most of he did have a lot of this style of clocks, but he also had some of the ones that were like a €500,000. I mean, there were some that were just mind-boggling as to the type of clocks that they were. And so I said to myself, well, I can't afford the egg because that was like €9,000, but can I make a clock? So I walked out of that shop and I told Mark, I said, that's it. I'm making a clock. I'm doing it. And so I did. And it works. So this was the second master's class. It's called Somewhere in Time. And I told myself I want a carriage clock. And so it is the same size as the average carriage clock size. So it's 5 inches with its handle up, 4 inches with the handle down. It does have all the similarities of the other the other carriage clocks. It has molding, which is what's down here, where the clock sits on this base. That was very typical. You can see there are different moldings. Okay. And then it has a handle. Has a handle. It has, in this case, I wanted to use printed metal, but I couldn't find a print that was working with my design. So I decided, nope, I'm not going to do that. So I kept the metal. This is a pink metal, very soft pink. And so I kept the metal plain. This is 24 gauge aluminum, which is cut with tin snips. And this clock does not open. Some students have made them open. It's totally clean on the inside, so they can put a hinge in the back and they can open it if they want to. It's not necessary because the clock pops out of this compression area right here. So you can actually pop the clock out. So you can change the battery, you can adjust the time, do whatever you need to do, and then you pop it back into it. So you don't need the inside of the clock to actually get to this little guy right here. And so then I said, okay, well, what else can I do to make it to where it's more like what I saw at the antique dealership? So I decided to give it guilloche is, I told you earlier, is like an enamel and it's very expensive to do. And so I thought, okay, how can I make that look like that? So I decided to give the sides and the top of the clock that shimmering look, patterned look of the guilloche because I wanted to keep that kind of thing going because it's so beautiful. And of course, I'm not doing enamel, but so I did it in, which I don't like working with these beads, but I did it with those satin delica beads that are nasty on your thread. but it made it work. And so I said, well, okay, I can't say I never am going to use them because I will, but I would never wear them. But I decided to do it this way. So it's built from here down. So all the walls are created. They are layered with plastics and suede, ultra suede, and so that the beadwork has to be able to hold up to the metal. So the sides have four layers of support, and the front only has the metal, and it also has a plastic layer because there were holes punched in order to put the clock on board, and suede on the inside. So the inside is totally clean, and then the molding is created. It's a two-step molding, and the bottom base of the clock is attached to the molding, and then the walls are built up, and then the lid is created separately. It actually has two lids. This lid up here sits down inside the metal, and you had to use a tool to punch a bunch of holes to actually sew the beadwork to the metal, and then it's all bezeled, and then it gets attached to the top of the clock. And so this one was I'm very proud of it because when I remember walking out of that store, and they were so kind, and he gifted me a really cool book, and I just said, I've got to make this. And so I I finally figured out how to do it, which was really awesome. So that brings me to the end, and I would love to hear any questions or comments we have time. I'd love to stop the share if I can. Let me stop the share and come back in. And
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful. We do have some questions for you.
please.
So Ronell would like to know, could you please spell Nicole's last name because he'd like to look her up on Facebook.
Yes, I'll put it in the chat.
Perfect.
Oh, thank you.
People want to know, when are your classes coming up so that they could possibly join one of them?
So I have the next workshop is through Bijou, which is in Brazelton, Georgia, but it is a Zoom class. And that one, their website is, well, they do
I'll put
things
it
a
in the
little
chat.
differently. You're going to put it in the chat? Okay, awesome.
It's bijou.etsy.com, beadjoux.etsy.com.
Yes, so I'm teaching 2 workshops for them, and which I've known them for quite a long time, and they're awesome people, and we're doing it via Zoom, so everyone's welcome. And so if you go to their website, it will push you over to Etsy, and you can sign up for class there. And then we're about maybe 10 days out of starting the roster and starting to talk about kits and supplies. So if you're interested, jump on over there and join us because it will be really a great time. Hannah, what am I teaching? I think I'm teaching Breath of Spring and
You're actually teaching 3. Give me just a second.
yes, thank you. It's Breath of Spring.
So if you go over to bijou.etsy.com and you go down to class fees and kits,
There we go.
the Breath of Spring, which I bet is from Primavera.
It is.
And then here is the Downton Abbey tassel that you talked about.
Oh.
And then hang tight. There we go. This one's my favorite. I love this one. So this one actually does look like does this have hinges? No.
Yeah, well, it kind of does because they're 3-dimensional shapes that are zipped together with only 3 rows of beadwork. So they are created independently and then hooked together. So it does act like a hinge. And this one's called stained glass windows.
Yeah. So that's what she's teaching. Saturday, December 6th, Friday, December 5th. And I can't remember if the other one is Sunday or Thursday. I think it's Sunday.
It's a Sunday. Yeah.
Okay. So it would be Sunday, December 7th.
Yes. Yeah. So all of those, you can sign up for class there. And then when the rosters go out, I send you all kinds of information about kit colorways, kit prices, CZ prices, all that kind of stuff. In this case, only stained glass windows has CZs already part of the kit, because that one was for a live event. And if you've ever seen 4 trays of CZs and 50 women, this is not going to be good. So it's like, oh no, they have to be included in the kit because that'd make it insane.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So yes, if you're thinking about joining us, that would be really lovely. What other kind of questions do we have?
Well, we have a bunch of just comments.
Hi,
So Becky says this was an amazing lecture. Thank you so much.
my pleasure.
Um, hang tight for just a second. Sorry. Leah Schwartz says it's wonderful to know the inspirations.
Thank you.
And Jan says your creations are wonderful. Now that we know the history, I can enjoy them even more. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Maggie says, Cynthia, your knowledge is encyclopedic. Your artistry is gorgeous. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
I think the history, that is one reason why I bead. So I don't, I'm more in the 1700s. My brain goes there, my research is there. I mean, I work earlier than that, I do work later than that, but I'm interested. I follow a lot of paintings that are about women, especially if they're wearing jewelry, what kind of jewelry, who were these people who painted it. This is one thing I don't care about for Pinterest, because a lot of people don't document where they grab stuff. It's like, if I'm going to grab something, I want to know where it is, where it came from, who painted it. I want to know all that information. I don't want to just have a sticker of an image and not know where it's coming from. I want all that historical perspective on board. It helps me when I'm designing. I think about, would Elizabeth II wear all you beat is love? Probably not, but be cool. If you thought it was like, wouldn't that be really cool? That's because you get to know more of the history of, get to know about that person, and what kind of life they had, and all that kind of stuff. And what pushes me to bead. So it's not just sitting down and moving my beads around on my bead board. It's more about, okay, a historical thing is in my head. What can I do to work with that starts it, and that gets it rolling. And I've been designing since 1988, I think.
Mhm.
It's been a
So
while.
who's your favorite historical figure?
I think early on, Elizabeth I was one of my favorites. But then I started moving into, I really like, one of my very favorite paintings, of course, is The Girl with the Pearl Earring.
Mhm.
That's just amazing. And Vermeer's work is amazing. And I really like Frederick Sandys, because his artistry, his sister was a painter, and that they actually had live models. And so they were actually wearing jewelry that they owned. And that was really interesting. They were part of the Brotherhood. So there's like a mid 1800s. And so I really like paintings that actually are showing existing jewelry. And because they were modeled, they were set up like like a little, like a photo shoot, and then they painted. So it was really interesting. And also find, like, say, Venus for Sandra Botticelli, her name was Vespucci, was Simonetta Vespucci. She was a real person, but you don't realize he painted her 14 times. So she is Venus. She is the birth of Venus. She goes through all these paintings with the same face. Did he ever meet her? She was an aristocrat. I doubt it. I doubt it. But he may have seen her. But then you want to know, is like, okay, how did he come up with that? It's just exactly, looks just like her. How does that work? And that's what gets me really. I want that's the research part. I love that part. Getting all those little details together, and then when I get my beads out, it's like, all right, let's go. So yeah.
Love that. We have a couple more comments and a
Sure.
couple of questions. So I'll do the comments first. Terry says, very interesting. Thanks for sharing. And Joanne says that she has a piece that is oval mother of pearl with a braid of hair in the middle, reacting to what you were talking about earlier there. My comment is that I love that you're wearing All You Bead Is Love right now. So yeah, there it is.
It's so pretty. Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
so a couple of questions now. Leo says she's been a long time fan and she wants to know if you use a magnifier device to do your work.
I use Brighton's half magnifiers. These are by Brighton. Um, that seems to be enough at the moment. I've used the Mag Eyes, I've used other things, but these it allows me to look down and then look straight out. So I can look across the room, I can look down at my beads, I can look across the room down at my beads. So they're not cheap, but they're by Brighton, and I think they're called the Shakespeare's. And they work really well for me. And a lot of people use a bunch of different. I don't like closing off. I don't like to be like in a helmet. So I like to be able to see around me. So that's what I use, and it seems to work at the moment. So if they decide not to work, I'll move on to something else. But yeah, wear magnification.
I love the Brighton ones too. I agree. Jan says a lot of your pieces use blue and purple. Are these favorite colors of yours, or are they from the time periods you study?
Actually, I have a lot of people tell me I don't use a lot of blue, but sometimes it's based on what the research is, and I'll pick colors. Again, I work with a lot of CZs, and I've been working with CZs since 97, I think. 97. And so CZs only come in certain colors, and they're not made out of glass. So they're made out of corundum or spinel, and so or beryl. So they're like in the lines of an emerald base. And corundum is a natural mineral, and so they only have so many base colors. And then what I do is that there's a company that I work with that can put a coating on them, sort of like a fire polish coating, and those are like top coat or bottom coat or double coat, and that will give you more color options. I've never used a Rivoli. I've never used a glass cabochon like thing before, because when I found the CZs, I wanted my beadwork to be elevated above using just glass. I wanted it to go to the gem quality as far as I could possibly go without, being crazed. And so I never really looked back at that point in time. I was in Australia, and the gal that picked me up at the airport in Hobart, she had a little bracelet on that she'd made with wire, and I'm looking like, what are those little stones in there? And they were set in little settings. I'm like, oh yeah, baby, I want some of those. So after dinner, I said, okay, let's talk about that bracelet. I want to know what's going on. She ordered them from Rio Grande, so that's in the United States of America. That's in Albuquerque. And so when I got back, I bought some from her. When I got back, I said, okay, I'm going to go to Tucson. I'm going to find these stones. And I'm still working with two companies that I've been working with since then. And I just never went back. They're beautiful. They're very hard. They're cut with diamond tools, so they're like a 9.2 to a 9.6 on the mole's hardness factor. A diamond's a 10. So, I'm working with stones versus with all glass, and that made that big difference in my work. And I just never really looked back. So for me, picking colors for designs, I look at the CZs first. So like, how can I maneuver this item to make the CZ shine? Because that's where your money is. Some of them are quite expensive. A lot of them are not, but some of them are. And so I try and work between all that. And so I use a lot of 24 karat gold, platinum, the dark gold, the green gold. I do a lot of that run, that 500 series in Delica beads, because the work deserves it. And if I'm going to put, 200 hours into a box, I want that end result to be worth it. And so I use the best materials I can get my hands on. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Terry says that she loves the beaded purse, and she wants to know if you have ever had a purse class.
I have not. I actually was going to, and I actually did buy Judith Lieber purse blanks. And I know had an opportunity and I was hoping to buy a whole lot more and then that dried up. So I have not. And I think it would be great, but I love yours. So why don't you teach a class? Yours is beautiful.
I have a question, Rochelle.
Yeah, she's unmuted. Ask away.
Okay. Cynthia, I think I remember that you were here in Minneapolis to teach us a class maybe 10, 15 years ago, but I don't remember what it was you taught.
An urn.
Was it
I
a-
really don't either. I used to live in Minneapolis. So
Oh, did you?
I did. I lived in Northeast. It was before the Grainbelt Brewery got switched over to what it is today, but we lived in a small Czech and Polish community in a tiny little house that was built in like turn of the century. Um, and hardwood floors that were really slick, so you could run from one end of the room and slide your way all the way to the kitchen. So yes, so my husband and I lived there. We loved it there. Mark was playing for music professionally, and when his contract ended and a new contract came on board, it brought us right back to San Diego. I was like, no, I cried for 1,000 miles. I didn't want to leave. I loved it there. I worked in a diner and I really loved it there. So yes, I was brought up there. I can't remember the gal's name right now. I was brought up there to teach for y'all, and I don't remember what I taught. It was a long time ago, but yeah, it was nice to be up there again.
Somebody here said she thought it was an urn.
If it was the garden urn, which
Yes,
yeah, okay. Let me see if I see one over there.
I think I'll go home tonight and finish it.
No, I don't see one over there. Yeah, it was when I first started beading, I took very few workshops. So I was lucky to be in San Diego at the time, and there was a store there called the Shepherdess, which was at that time was very famous because of their catalog of classes, which nobody else was doing. And they were bringing people in from all over the place, from Europe. They were bringing all over the U.S. And I took a one-day class from David Chat, learning how to manipulate peyote stitch around a little wooden ball. And I took a 3-day class from Joyce Scott. That was in 1991. And it was called flat peyote stitch. And there was not one single thing in that class that was flat. Nothing. that name, I was like, oh, I could do flat peyote stitch, and I'm a relatively brand new beater, but oh, get in there. And she had them making a vessel. I'm thinking, not this girlfriend. And so I started. Mark had given it to me as a birthday present. And the first day I go back and I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I done to myself? I can't do this. I just can't do this. And Mark said, no, you're going to do it. Just get back in there and do what you do. So, a lot of mistakes. Like the first day I get there and I bead mats. They didn't have bead on it boards. You brought a mat. Well, I had a terry towel. You know what beads do in a terry towel? Yeah. And then on top of it, I had silver lined AB, 14 different colors. What do they look like when they're all together? Exactly the same. And so I couldn't differentiate between these piles. And then Joyce, I don't know if you know who Joyce Scott is. She was
Yeah, she taught for us or
She
spoke to
probably
us.
picked up the mat and put them all in one pile, didn't she?
She did. She did, but she didn't do it with her hands. She did it with her girls. They were laying in my bead tray and on my mat, and she's mixing them all together. And she says, "Oh, look, aren't you cute?" And I'm thinking, "Oh my God!" And she says, "Now, what is your name?" And I'm thinking, "I'm dying here. I'm just dying." And my friend next to me, she says, "Just breathe. You'll be just fine. Just breathe." And so I went. I'd been crying and I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to make it. And Mark's like, get back in there. You can do this. And so the next day I went back in with a piece of muslin fabric and Pigma pins and my beads. And I did her techniques, but I stitched them to a piece of fabric. And so she came around and she said, okay. I went, I thought she was going to yell at me. She's like, oh, okay. we could do this. And so I still have it. And I have all of these notes with the Pigma pins on this fabric with all these little bits of beadwork hanging there. How do you make a a right angle turn and peyote stitch? How do you use herringbone over here? How do you do this? And what I did is I made a sampler out of the stitches instead of making a vessel. If I had made a vessel, I wouldn't have known what I did. So she let it go. And so at the end, she had a little champagne toast with everything. And she said, yeah, we're sitting in a circle. And she says, so what's everybody's plans? What are you going to plan on doing with this class? And I said, well, and when she came to me, I said, well, I really would like to design my own work. I don't really want to do other people's work. I want to design my own. And she looks at, I'm going to keep my eye on you. Keep my eye on you. And so Mark asked me after it was over, he says, so what do you think? And I said, well, I am going to design my own work. And one day I hope to be standing in the same place that she is, and we're teaching like right next door to each other. And I want to be able to say, I was teaching right there with Joy Scott because she was famous. And I did get to do that. So it was all good. It was all good. And she taught me a lot. And I always just thank her very much for, even though she, made me really like, is that she pushed. And so, sometimes when somebody pushes those little buttons, and you have that little train, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, and you just do it. You just do it. And so, and I thank her very much for that. Absolutely. But yeah, craziness. Any other comments, questions, anything else? I've kept you all quite a long time today. Good.
Been such a joy. Just,
Well,
We
thank
loved
you.
it.
yeah,
Thank you very
absolutely.
much. Yeah, timing is always interesting when it's a new presentation because this one is new. It was built for you guys. And so, other ones that I know kind of my timing. So I kept looking at the clock going, okay, I better like speed it up, slow it down, speed it up, slow it slow down. And I know there's a lot of information but again, I like having multiple things to look at. It's great to see all beadwork, but it's also great to see where the inspiration comes from. And I think that makes it, that tells more of a story. And, they are like stories. And so in my instruction sheets, I do tell a little story in the beginning about where the inspiration comes from, but it's different than imagery. It's sort of like food. We eat with our eyes first. And so seeing it helps you kind of pull it all in and see, oh, I see where that came from. You're looking at a painting, or you're looking at a clock, or you could see where it was built. And so, which is really, really cool. Right up my alley.
And I'm really proud of her.
Oh, that's my husband, Mark. He just got home. Thank you. Well, yeah, thank you.
Thank
Well, thank you all very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing all of you at some point in the future and beading. My website is my name, iown.com and .net, so it doesn't really matter. And which one you go to, they're the same. And if you, the calendar is getting ready to be updated in the next week or so to show you what's happening this next year, save the dates. But yes, the December workshop with Bijou is coming up, 3 different classes. We'd love to have you join us. It's a nice little run. And so I want to thank you all. Rochelle, Hannah, thank you very much for helping me get all this pulled together. I really appreciate it very much.
We loved it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure.